Build episode. The UK is fighting a tidal wave of romance fraud.
In the last year alone, almost 10,000 cases have been reported to the police.
It's a hugely harmful crime which can be devastating emotionally and financially, with the economic cost to the UK last year close to £100 million.
It doesn't matter if you're old or young, a man or a woman. It could happen to anyone.
The man you've been speaking to is not real.
I loved him so much.
And we are back to expose the lies and manipulation behind these heartless scammers.
We'll be uncovering the tactics of the criminals behind the scams.
It's set up to trap someone.
And following the teams that won't rest until the scammers are brought to justice.
And as ever, we'll have everything you need to know to make sure you and your money stay safe.
Who are you?
Who are you?
Who are you?
Coming up, how one woman's online love affairs cost her, her home, and over £250,000.
It's more than painful. I don't know how I'm holding it together.
It's okay. The shocking moment this woman was forced to confront the truth about the man she was in a relationship with.
Looking at these figures makes me feel quite sick, actually, when I think about the amounts of money.
And the chilling consequences of one woman's love affair with a scammer.
I found a wedding dress and my mum was expecting the scammer to come over and marry her.
Kim, we've been contacted by a lady called Barbara. Now, she's concerned that she's been scammed. Let's have a look.
Okay.
I was married for 20-odd years and unfortunately my husband died. I met a guy called Phil and unfortunately he died. I was at the lowest anybody could be. A friend of mine said, why don't you join a dating site? Frank got hold of me there. Yeah, I fell in love with him. While he was in Ghana, he wanted to buy some gold. I got in such a mess. I had to sell my house. I can't explain how I felt. I moved from the flat to here, where I am now, which is a caravan park. I'm saying he's not real, but still in the back of my mind, I think, is he?
She sold her house for this man. If it's a scammer, we are talking a lot of money.
I will go and have a chat with her and see what information I can find out.
Barbara sent me all the pictures, texts and emails from Frank so I can get digging and see where it leads.
After losing her partner in 2011, Barbara had been encouraged to join a dating site to help her move on. And in 2012, she did just that.
Hello, Barbara.
Hi, Kim.
It wasn't long before someone caught her eye. 60-year-old Frank Wadsworth told Barbara he was a security officer for the US Secret Service based in Ghana with a 10-year-old son.
Oh, God, I like his photo.
Okay, you liked the look of him initially?
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
Yes, he was my ideal man. He was generous. Valentine's Day, he sent me chocolates and flowers.
Wow.
The emails were out of this world. You know, there's always a poem. You know, he stole my heart.
Swept off her feet by Frank, Barbara was enjoying every moment of their newfound romance. But it wasn't long before things started to change.
How soon after you were speaking did he start asking you for money?
I would say it was within a year.
What were the kinds of things he would ask you for money for?
Because he was in Ghana, he wanted to buy this gold and insurance for lawyers, different things to get it out of the country, sent me all these certificates to prove what he wanted me to help him with. He sent me a picture of his account and saying that he got 3 million something in there. Of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, if I'm paying this, I'm going to get it back. And in the end, I ended up losing my house.
Barbara sold the house that she and her deceased husband Paul had lived in together to pay the debts she'd accrued giving money to Frank. Frank flooded Barbara with legal documents that he said proved everything he was saying was true. And when that didn't work, he even threatened suicide if Barbara couldn't help him financially. She moved into a motorhome, but then had to sell that as well.
I bought another place and done it all up, and I sold it for a whacking profit, which helped me sort myself out. And then after that, I had to move again, because again, I was sending him money, because he couldn't access his account. And of course, when I was saying to him, you know, I'm really getting into debt, promises came, you can buy a house, you know, we will live the luxury life, and I believed him. I don't know the exact amount I gave him, I don't, but I think it was in the region of £150,000.
Wow.
A few weeks later, out of the blue, Frank contacted Barbara with some worrying news. He told her he'd been accosted by a gang in Ghana and locked up, and from there, matters only got worse.
I had a phone call from one of his friends that he'd been killed. I looked at this death certificate, and of course, with all the deaths I'd been dealing with, I sort of knew what to look for. It was USA, but it got all these different places of where he was taken to, where he was cremated and all that on there. So I emailed and said, can you tell me, you know, has he been laid to rest there? Came back to me, replied, which I thanked him for very much, but no, they never heard of him.
Barbara had been in a relationship with Frank for 7 years and had lost a huge sum. But she had little time to grieve over his death, as a few weeks later, Frank was back in touch. He claimed his death had been faked by the gang, who instead held him captive. He asked Barbara for more money to pay off the kidnappers and get him released.
It was quite a few weeks later before I heard from him again. And he said they locked him up somewhere, so I kept sending him money because he wanted money to live.
How did you feel about him at this point?
I did believe him. I did. I know it sounds crazy, but I did, because I loved him.
Yeah.
You know, really, he was my world.
Over time, the dramatic situations and demands for money became too much for Barbara, who began to suspect Frank wasn't who he said he was. She cut Frank out of her life, but is still coming to terms with what happened to this day.
In my mind, 99% sure he's not real. But there's still that little 1% that thinks he may be.
And you're hoping?
Yeah.
That must be painful.
It's more than painful, Kym. I don't know how I'm holding it together.
It's okay for you to be upset, you know. You've gone through an awful lot, both prior to this and through all of this, you know.
Barbara has given away a 6-figure sum, so I want to get to the truth about Frank as quickly as we can. I'm digging into all the information Barbara has sent over to find out more.
Got a photo of his. I'm going to reverse image search it and see what comes up.
A reverse image search allows me to see if these photos have cropped up anywhere else on the internet. To do a reverse image search, select the option from your search engine and choose the photo you want to investigate from your computer.
So looking at the results of this image straight away, it looks a bit dodgy because there's a photo of a man with the same shirt, but he's flipped round and a different face. So my assumption is that the scammer has cropped a head of Frank onto this different person.
By zooming in and cropping the face of Frank, I'm able to isolate just this part of the picture to search. It may find who the person really is.
So when I've cropped that head, it's now appeared on a different photo, different backdrop, different clothing. So my guess is that a scammer's gone to this photo, cropped the head, and put it on the photo of the man with the green shirt.
Now that I've found the original photo, more avenues to explore are opening up.
Looking at the related images, what I can see is that it's the same man appearing on different dating sites. We've got a Love Again 53, we've got a Scot who's 55 years old from Ghana, Accra. The related image has also come up on an anti-scam forum. I mean, these photos are in wide circulation by scammers. That is very clear to see.
And the Scam Warning webpage gives us more key details.
Looking at the Scam Warning page, I can see a name, an Alphonse Valdez, apparently from Illinois. I'm going to look that up online and see what we find. Oh, it looks like it could be the same guy, but a lot older. This Alfonso bloke seems to be some sort of academic. So, from what I can see, Frank, the person Barbara thinks she's talking to, isn't real. And the photos of Frank actually belong to this man, the academic Alfonso, who is based at the University of Illinois.
Barbara gave the man she knew as Frank over £150,000 during the course of a 7-year-long relationship. But there's a second chapter to her story. Not long after finishing with Frank, she received a message out of the blue on Skype from a man called Danny Palmer. He told her he was a Canadian oil rig engineer just about to start a new contract in Ghana.
I just got a message saying, "Hi Barbara, my name's Danny. Would you like to chat?" And because I wasn't seeing anybody or anything, I thought, "Oh, well, yeah, okay." And I was straight with him. I said, "I've had all this before." And I told him everything I knew about Frank.
Barbara and Danny opened up to each other and spent hours chatting on the phone as well as on Skype Messenger. It wasn't long, though, before Danny told Barbara he'd hit a tight spot with cash. For Barbara, it all sounded wearily familiar.
He had problems getting his wages.
Right, okay.
Could I help him?
And what did you say or do?
I sent him money.
Okay.
His father died and he had to go to Germany because he'd left him an inheritance and it was in Germany. I thought, what's he doing there? He lives in Canada. His father had left him some diamonds and some gold. And I had this video chat sort of with the guy in this vault so they could show me. And to be quite honest, it all looked very real.
Barbara agreed to pay a 5-figure sum to have Danny's inheritance released and sent to her in the UK for safekeeping. Danny also told Barbara to start looking for £1 million houses to spend his inheritance on, as he wanted to move to the UK as soon as possible to be with her. Excited at the prospect of finally being together, Barbara paid for Danny's passport and visa.
The next day I got a message from him saying, "Oh my God, it's all gone wrong. So I've been shot. I'm in hospital. Would I help?"
Okay.
Of course. Yes.
Picking up Danny's repeated medical bills hasn't come cheaply to Barbara.
You've lost a lot of money.
I know.
How much?
I don't know exactly. I would think about £100,000.
Wow. Barbara.
So, of course, I lost my place again. And now I'm living in a caravan.
Since meeting Frank in 2011 and subsequently Danny in 2019, Barbara has downsized 4 times in order to pay off the debt she's accrued from giving money to them both. In total, she believes she has sent around £250,000.
I've got it looking nice. I've spent quite a bit of money on it to make it as homely as I can. But I hate it there.
So, there's 2 men, Frank and Danny. What would you like us to try and find out about Frank, firstly?
If he's real.
And what about Danny? Where are you at with Danny?
I'm still talking to Danny.
Okay.
He's in hospital. Is it real or is it not?
If it's not real, how are you going to feel?
Very upset, but in a way, it'd be a relief to know. You know, one way or the other.
Well, look, we've got to go away and find out what we can.
Yeah.
And you must not send any more money. You have to promise me you're not.
I can't.
Well, the only thing I'll say to you is, If this is an actual scam, you're giving it to a criminal.
Yes, that's true. I promise you I won't send anything until I know the outcome.
Right. Well, we will do our best.
Yes.
Barbara's story makes me really sad. Not only does it look like she's been scammed once, it looks like it's happened again. And yet she could not promise me that she wouldn't send him any more money. And that, for me, is, wow, you know?
After 2 failed relationships, administrator Angie devoted her life to hard work and raising her 3 daughters as a single mum.
I came out of the second relationship pretty scarred and financially broken, but managed to pick myself up, worked hard. I managed to buy my own house.
Once her children had flown the nest and Angie finally had some time for herself, she decided to venture into the world of online dating.
Everyone needs support, someone to lean on. It's just having that companionship, I think, in life.
That was when Angie was approached by 55-year-old engineer Chris from London. He told her he was based on an oil rig off the coast of Scotland. However, as we've seen many times previously on For Love or Money, this photo is of an innocent man whose photographs have been stolen to create a fake identity.
He started messaging me, and the exchange of conversation between us seemed to flow quite easily. It made me feel so good. It just lifted me so much.
But Chris's story soon started to become more complicated. He told Angie he wasn't going to receive a penny for his engineering work on the oil rig until his contract had finished. But he had a safety deposit box containing cash, and he wanted Angie to look after it.
He took my address and he sent me a link to this site that you had to go to pay so-called demurrage. I wasn't familiar with demurrage, a fee that you have to pay to clear something.
2 months into their relationship, Chris asked Angie to pay the initial sum of £8,000 to cover the cost of the demurrage to release his box containing the money. Chris maintained he was a man of significant means and that he would be able to pay Angie back as soon as they met up in the UK.
I didn't have £8,000 lying about the house. I might have had small savings, but £8,000 was a huge amount to me, yeah?
Without the money available to her, Chris persuaded Angie that the best course of action was to take out equity from her home.
I came up with lots of different excuses and reasons. You are the only person who I can trust, blah, blah, blah. But I was panicking at this point because my house is my home, my daughter's home.
Desperate to keep her relationship alive, Angie agreed to release £12,000 equity from her house and travelled to Manchester to complete the paperwork.
I'm quite shaken. I'm signing a part of my life away. But at this point, his tack changes. He doesn't want me to go into the link. He wants me to send £8,000 to this bank account.
As instructed, Angie attempted to make the £8,000 transaction, but it wasn't going to be as straightforward as she'd hoped.
The bank questioned it. What are you going to use the money for? And I thought, panic. I can't tell them because they'll never believe me. So I said, oh, it's to help my family out. Right, well, we'll have to look into this and you'll have to come back. And at that point, 2 police officers came in. They said, could they have a word with me upstairs?
The police wanted to check Angie wasn't being scammed, but believing Chris's story and desperate to get him the cash he said he needed, Angie persuaded her bank and the police to release her money.
I thought that would be the end of that, but it wasn't.
Chris was grateful to receive the £8,000, which meant his safety deposit box could be released, but his demands for Angie's money didn't stop there.
The next thing is he's asking for amounts of money. He has a team to pay for. He has to pay their wages.
And Chris had an idea for how Angie could raise the money he needed.
He suggests that the way to resolve it is maybe to put the house up for sale. Foolishly, I let him convince me.
Chris was piling emotional pressure on Angie, assuring her he would pay her back, and that without the money, everything he'd worked so hard for was at risk. And so Angie agreed to sell her house through a quick deal agency at a loss.
They sent me an offer of £100,000. I wasn't happy because I knew at that time it was worth at least £140,000, so it was a huge loss. So I texted him and told him, and he said, do it, arrange it.
From the sale of the home she'd worked so hard for, after the equity and sale costs were taken off, Angie received only £80,000.
He's actually at this point sending people up to collect amounts of money. The first time it happened, some guy comes up to collect the money in a taxi from London, and then 2 or 3 times he actually sent a woman up from London on the train.
In increments of £5,000 and £10,000, Angie withdrew £63,000 in cash from her bank to give to Chris via various intermediaries who visited her in person.
Looking at these figures makes me feel quite sick, actually, when I think about the amounts of money, what has literally been given away.
Once Angie had handed over all her money, communication with the man calling himself Chris suddenly dried up. Angie finally realised she'd been scammed in the most malicious of ways.
Having to let my daughters know the truth, that it was a scam, that I'd lost everything, was the hardest part of all.
She's since reported the scam to Action Fraud, but so far, no further action has been taken. Since her ordeal, Angie has had to come out of retirement as she set about rebuilding her life.
I'm working again, I'm finding my way in life. I have some friends out there that to this day don't know the full story of what happened because of my fear of telling them. But I'm no longer afraid of how he made me feel.
I'm looking into the case of Barbara, who's lost over £250,000 to people she thought she was in a romantic relationship with. Barbara's case is a first for us, in that she appears to have been scammed by more than one individual over a decade-long period. I'm curious as to how scammers can manipulate victims for such a long time and know that language is one of their primary tools. So I'm meeting forensic linguist Dr. Elizabeth Carter to see if she can spot the language tricks Frank and Danny used to access Barbara's finances.
There are lots of similarities between these two scams. They both talk about suicidal ideation, so that they say they're suicidal, but for different reasons. Frank, what's quite interesting in this scam is that he uses his son to contact Barbara, and this is what's called othering, and it gives credibility to Frank. So the son repeats a lot of the themes that Frank is saying. They're going to move over to the UK. He's so grateful because his family hasn't got any money and they're relying on Barbara. All of these things kind of pile the pressure on Barbara. With Danny, he much more tightly controls Barbara's actions. So he says, let me know when you finish feeding the birds. Tell me when you finish coming back from the shops. So she almost has to, well, she does have to check in with him, with Danny, to say, I've done this, I've done that. And this tight control, although it seems quite benign, is actually very closely related to coercive control, domestic violence and abuse.
Is that something you find happens quite a lot in these cases, then?
Yes, absolutely. I do also see that scammers quite often refer to themselves as husbands if they're male scammers, or wives if they're female scammers. And this really feeds into this narrative of what the victim really wants, which is a long-term relationship, security, stability as well.
And what about Danny then? What's the differences there?
Instead of Frank, who is very direct and is saying, you know, you need to help me, with Danny, what's going on here is he's saying, look, it's us against the world, it's us against the bank, and it's them together, and it's this kind of joint comradeship almost, and it's us together against the world. It pulls them together. Crucially, it isolates her. It isolates Barbara from not only the bank, but also this bleeds into her family as well, isolates her from her family. Now, isolation is one of the #1 tools of fraudsters. Because it's a coercive control thing and it's an abusive grooming relationship, victims really need their family around them.
Yeah, it's quite unbelievable, isn't it? The control that they can gain over you.
Yes.
My investigations have already shown me that Barbara has been scammed by the man she knew as Frank Wadsworth. So now it's time to examine her latest relationship with the man calling himself Danny Palmer.
I've reverse image searched a photo of Danny and a very similar looking guy has come up. The name associated with the link that's come up is also a Dan, but a different surname. In this case, it's an Aldridge. So I've searched Dan Aldridge in Facebook and I found a profile with a very, very similar looking guy.
Danny, like Alfonso, the person being used for Frank's profile, has opened settings allowing anybody to see all of his social media activity, regardless of whether or not they're a friend. This allows scammers to harvest these photos. And when I look at his LinkedIn page, I'm under no doubt this is the man being used to dupe Barbara.
Now, I've just looked him up on LinkedIn, and when I look at his career profile, I can see that he worked as a consultant years ago at Flowserve. Now, this is really important because on the photo sent to Barbara, he is wearing a Flowserve t-shirt. So it seems as if both guys that Barbara's been speaking to are not who they say they are.
Romance fraud doesn't just affect the wealthy. Scammers will target whoever they can and convince them to take out loans, credit cards, even equity from their homes until they have been fleeced of every penny. And as our next case shows, sometimes it doesn't even stop there. Retail manager Richard Chamberlain's mother was with her partner for 25 years before he died in 2013.
My mum, she had a great relationship with her partner. And when he died, my mum sort of fell apart.
Richard's mum, Elaine, was on her own for 6 years before she decided to try online dating, and it wasn't long before somebody made contact.
My mum told me she'd met somebody online, and I said, that's great, but just need to ask you just one question. Are you sending any money? The answer that came from my mum was, no, I wouldn't do anything like that. I'm not that silly.
Mark Grimmings had told Elaine that he was in his early 60s and from the USA. As we've seen many times previously on For Love or Money, the photographs used to create the fake identity of Mark have been stolen from an innocent party, and there is no implication this person was involved in the scam.
My mum showed me a picture of Mark. He told my mum that he was a diver, working on a boat.
Richard's concern for his mum started to grow when he discovered multiple phones at her house, and the content on those phones was disturbing.
The person was telling my mum how much money to send, where to send money, where to go to, thank you for sending the money.
Richard discovered that his mum had been transferring cash to Mark through money transfer services to addresses in London, Luton, Leeds and Ghana. Richard confronted his mum and she admitted sending Mark £8,000.
I was just absolutely gobsmacked. The amounts of money that she was sending, and I'm ringing her up saying, Mum, don't do it. Why are you doing it?
And after overhearing a chat between his mum and Mark, Richard's worst fears were confirmed.
My mum got a phone call one day and I heard the conversation, and I said to my mum, that's not an American or an English gentleman. That's a deep African voice.
Richard then realised that when Elaine had been going to collect her pension each week, she had also been making large deposits of money into different accounts on behalf of the man she knew as Mark. Richard asked the police to help.
She didn't listen to the police, so we had my mum barred from local post offices so that she couldn't go and make deposits. But then she started going to post offices further afield.
Richard and his son started gathering evidence to prove to his mum that the man she was passing money to was a fraudster.
We found the picture of Mark Crimmins and found out that this was the profile that my mum was seeing, and the profile was being used by the scammers. Mark wasn't an American diver or from the US.
But despite Richard explaining the truth, Elaine continued to send money, in total almost £20,000, and the effect on her wasn't just financial.
My mum's health started to deteriorate quite rapidly. We'd had to go up and help her and clean up and get nurses and doctors out. Her health was just in a massive decline.
In May 2021, Elaine died of organ failure. She'd been refusing to eat or take her daily medication for the lung condition COPD.
Devastating. Yeah, it wasn't good. I knew these guys had killed my mum.
Soon after her death, the extent of what Elaine had been dealing with from the scammers became clear.
After my mum had passed away, went down to my mum's, and literally within seconds of walking through the door, her phone was ringing. And it was the scammer. It was a WhatsApp face message asking for Elaine. And I said, Elaine's not here. She's dead. Elaine's dead? I went, yeah, Elaine's dead. I says, and you guys have killed her.
Elaine had just £120 left in her bank account when she died. Even so, Richard wasn't prepared for what came next.
We was going through her belongings and I found a wedding dress in a bedroom that she'd bought. This is how much the scammer had got inside my mum's head and made her believe that this was going to happen, that he was going to come over and marry her. This, my mum's had in her house since my son was born. He used to put money in this every single week, and when we went into the house after she died, we found it, and we've got little notes in here. I owe you £150. I owe you £100. I owe you £450. Got to my mum that much that she's even given her own grandson's money away.
Richard is sharing his story with us to try to make sure this doesn't happen again.
I was very angry with my mum for what she'd done, but I was even angrier with the people that had done it to her. The reason that I'm sharing my story is just to help other people, and if I can help just one family, that's great.
Barbara, a retired carer from Kent, is someone else struggling with online romance gone wrong. She's been talking to two different people, Frank and Danny, across 10 years without having met either of them. In total, across the two relationships, she sent more than £250,000.
However, our investigations have shown that Barbara has been a target of scammers for almost a decade.
When I asked her to promise me not to send any more money, she said, I can't promise you that.
Oh, no. Well, hopefully the evidence we've uncovered is going to give her everything she needs to stop parting with her cash.
Yeah.
Let's hope the truth can finally end the fiction.
Have you had contact?
With Danny, yes. I'm
Yeah.
still in contact with Danny, but he's expecting some money.
Have you not sent any since we last spoke, no?
No.
With the possibility of Barbara still believing Danny is real, it's imperative she hears and understands what's happened to her. We begin with Frank and the tall tales he's told Barbara, stories that we've heard time and time again.
Things like Frank had money, but he couldn't access it. We know that he has ties with Ghana, and we know that Ghana is a hotspot for scamming of this sort.
Yes.
Frank sent Barbara this certificate of proof of work with the government. However, it's littered with warning signs.
As you know, this is supposed to be an official document, but as you can see, the word governing is spelt wrong. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
And as you can see there, the director's name is a Felix Affel.
Yes.
But look at the signature. It just doesn't match the name.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, God.
Even more concerning, there's a love heart on the eye.
Oh, yes.
That is just a really informal signature that doesn't bear any resemblance to the director's name. I'm so sorry to say this. We believe they're fake.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And Frank sent Barbara this photo of him being arrested. However, once again, it's another fake to help Barbara part with her cash.
You looked into this photo and we found this photo from a local newspaper in America.
Oh, wow.
This is the original photo.
Yeah.
The one you received has been edited to support Frank's story.
His head on it.
You were expecting this?
I was.
With Frank?
Yeah, I was. Still hoping it wasn't.
Yeah.
What is it, do you think, that's making you so upset at this moment?
Just seeing all this. Man I thought loved me. I just don't want to look at him anymore. What he's done to my life.
Yeah.
Barbara. Lost everything because of him.
Barbara, there is one bit of information we have for you should you want it. The real man in the photos, we've spoken to him and he's agreed to speak to you.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to speak to him?
Yes. I know I'm going to cry again.
Almost 10 years after starting her online romance, it's time for Barbara to meet the man whose photos were used to dupe her.
Hello, Alfonso. I'm sorry this has happened for you and for me.
Oh, I'm much more sorry for you. Other than my pictures being out there, I'm not really harmed. I don't think.
Yes.
For you, this is really terrible, all the losses you've experienced.
Yeah, it ruined me.
The fact that somebody would do something like that, I'm not a part in it, but that I was made a part of it. It may be hard to bring these scammers to justice, but I hope some effort is made.
And I'm sorry that I'm getting upset, but it's just so nice to see you.
It's perfectly understandable that you're upset.
I fell madly in love with you.
Appearances can be deceiving.
Well, thank you, Alfonso. It's just been absolutely great talking to you.
It's been great talking to you as well, and I hope I can bring you some closure, comfort.
Yeah, thank you. I liked that. What a very nice man. I'm pleased I've spoke to him. Yeah, that was good. I like that.
With the first scam put to bed and Barbara able to move on from Frank, it's time to discuss Barbara's latest relationship, Danny Palmer. Unfortunately, it's more bad news for Barbara.
These photos mean a lot to you.
You can tell me.
We looked at them, Barbara, and unfortunately, we found that these photos have been stolen. Take a breath.
Oh, you want to
Barbara, I'm sorry.
I knew it.
These photos belong to a man called Dan Aldridge and not Danny Palmer. A scammer using the alias Danny Palmer has stolen the photos of a man called Daniel Aldridge to con you.
So to do it twice.
What I should say is that when someone has been victim to a scam,
Yeah.
it is common, in fact, that a secondary scam happens, that another version of a scam takes place, that you're still a target.
It's quite common for this to happen.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they've got your details, they know that you've done it once.
My son actually said this to me a while ago, saying that I'm on their list now. Like they have a list who's easy to convince. He did warn me in the early days, you know, he said, don't do this, Mum.
Yeah.
He's a scammer. I said, no, he's not. Don't talk stupid. You know, I wouldn't send money to somebody I didn't know. He said, but you don't know him. I said, of course I do.
Yeah.
I said, you want to sit at home 7 days a week on your own and you've got no one to talk to. I said, and you get all these lovely emails, people to talk to. It's loneliness.
Oh, Barbara, I'm so sorry.
With the truth revealed to Barbara, it's time for her to block Danny's number and end her decade-long scamming nightmare.
Block Danny Palmer.
Yes.
I've always helped others. You know, even my job.
You're helping people now.
Yes.
That is the incredible
Yes.
thing about what you're doing.
Yes.
You're helping so many people.
Yeah, I hope so. Just don't go through what I've been through. It's not worth it. Definitely not worth it.
I hope that she understands the point that just because you've been scammed once or even twice doesn't mean that it can't happen again. They're always going to find a way. They're going to find a different avenue to get in touch with her. So hopefully she's got her wits about her and she doesn't go down this hole again.
Yeah, hope so.
I was hoping that he wasn't in the same category as Frank was, but unfortunately he is. So I will not talk to him again. I will just block. And I'm prepared to change my phone number, change my email, and so he can't contact me again.
If you think you've been scammed in a similar way or been asked to send money to someone you're talking to online, then we'd like to hear from you. Email loveormoney@bbc.co.uk. Join us again.
Oh my God. I'm going to tell you this, look at me. He is 100% a scammer.
For more shocking tales of romance fraud.
By then, I'd sent 23,000 quid.
If you're thinking maybe it's time for a change, grab some inspiration with property projects in Blackpool and Wolverhampton. Homes Under the Hammer, next.